Welcome back. It's me, RJB for RJB TV Casts. Although I pretty much only cast Starcraft. But I am back again, today again, for once again another replay with HamburgerSasu again on the Protoss against the player HelloToday here, the brown Protoss. And he is the player JH or Voss. And this is a best of 3 series between these two players. And it starts off with a very equal matchup. So neither of the player can blame it on the matchup because both players have the same race. It's all going to come down to who of these two players is actually the superior Protoss versus Protoss player. Because after all, you can have strong matchups and weak matchups on the same race. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the other player is the better Protoss player over the other player, but I think we can all pretty much safely assume and claim and say with confidence, backed up by evidence, that HamburgerSasu is a pretty darn strong Protoss player. JH is also a pretty strong Protoss player, specifically in Protoss versus Protoss. His Protoss versus Terran is considered to be significantly weaker in comparison. But then again, there's also his Protoss versus Zerg, which is considered to be extremely strong. It's mostly his Protoss versus Terran that used to be considered weak. But as of late, like more recent stuff that I've seen from the guy, his Protoss versus Terran has grown stronger. Also, I feel a scratch in my throat, so I've gotta... I'm sorry, there's an itch in my throat. I had the cough. I had to turn on the mic for a couple seconds there. Don't worry, I'm not sick. Coronavirus is actually pretty much receding in my country specifically. So the chances of me having corona at this point are pretty much zero. Pretty much zero. So HamburgerSasu starts off with a little bit of a more risky strategy than HelloToday. We can call him JH, I assume. JH starts off with gateways into a Nexus, into 2 more gateways, and there is the first Nexus finishing up, and he's got his first 2 Zealots about to be spawning up right here, right now. Well, right at about the same time, his second 2 gateway pair finishes up. So that's 4 gateways there in total. Got a gas there on the way as well. Gas is already finished there for HamburgerSasu. He went for 2 gateways, and a forge, and of course a very early cybernetics core. And the cannon that is there to protect his probes against these zealots that are going to try to harass his workers. But first he's going to try to kill that probe, because that probe is giving HamburgerSasu a lot of information on what JH is up to. JH would have rather kept that a secret, because now it means that HamburgerSasu can add on more cannons and prepare himself for what could have been an impending doom, because the zealot count would have skyrocketed and gotten pretty big pretty darn quick. Well, it is getting pretty darn big, pretty darn quick, but now that HamburgerSasu knows that it's getting pretty darn big, pretty darn quick, he can add those cannons that I mentioned before, and keep himself alive and secure by placing his zealots pretty much like this. Although this cannon there, yes, he can move his zealots into position to block access to the cannon for those zealots, so the zealots are pretty much rendered useless in this exact scenario for now. Robotics facility also on the way for the Reaver, I'm sure, because at the moment I'm seeing that HamburgerSasu is seeing that HelloToday is only just now starting his cybernetics core. There's no forge, so he's definitely going for Reavers here. He's also going for a Citadel of Doom so he can get speed zealot upgrade, or maybe go for Templars for those drops. But first it's going to be a Reaver drop, because it would simply take too long to get that high Templar and the Storm upgrade up and running. For the timing, the shuttle will be out, and then the shuttle will just be sitting there doing nothing. So he adds on a third assimilator. JH is moving out, trying to get some harass down on HamburgerSasu, but HamburgerSasu gets cut out with his zealots. He tries to get those 2 zealots through so he can do another round of scouting and keep JH busy with his units for now, but I don't think it's going to do all that much because the zealot here gets caught, the zealot gets through. which now means that the progression of his tech here in his base is going just fine and dandy. There's a support bay coming in, Zealot there penetrating through, still sees no cannons, he sees no Forge. Forge is here on the way though, about to be finishing up, and he's going to see that one finishing up there as well. And the Robo also coming up, most likely for observers, because it might appear to JH that HamburgerSasu is going for Dark Templars with Zealot lag speed, which he is not, but he might be going for it within the mind of JH, because it is a very common strategy. That is why he's going for the Robo facility without any of the other tech buildings, because he needs the observatory for observers to assist his Dragoons. It's a very common combination: Dragoons, Zealots, and of course, one observer. So you can start sieging and abuse the fact that you had more gateways earlier out on the map than your opponent, and have a bigger mass than your opponent, and try to get some leverage with that. But the fact that this Reaver is almost finished up means that HamburgerSasu can get some real good defensive movements off with the Shuttle Reaver micro, given the condition, of course, that those Dragoons here in the back do not snipe the Shuttle and do not snipe the Reaver, which is something JH is trying to do right here, right now. He's trying to get on top of the tech so he can deal some damage and maybe kill the Reaver, or maybe kill stuff and just do damage to HamburgerSasu before HamburgerSasu becomes too big to handle for JH. But JH having 47 probes against the 43 probes there from HamburgerSasu is actually in a pretty good spot there. He also has those Dragoons there, his anti-drop already up and running, ready to move and intercept the shuttle that's inevitably going to fly in very, very soon. Also, the Dark Templars that I mentioned earlier have come out there for JH. JH does not have his observatory up and running yet, because he went for a cyber support bay first to get Reavers as well. There's the support, there's the speed. He's also got the Reaver queued up. Observatories there on the way. Dark Templars there unloading first. Reaver stays alive within the shuttle, only one hit left. This is a very close call there. He tries to go in but can't really get access to anything important. Whereas the Dark Templars that he dropped inside of JH's base actually get on top of the pylon and start taking down the pylons there that form the skeleton of his base, and it might actually get him supply stuck if he doesn't add on more pylons very soon, because once this one goes down, supply stuck he will be, which will give HamburgerSasu a little bit of a time window to outscale and become bigger than JH. But of course, as I mentioned, there's the condition that these Dark Templars stay alive and keep doing damage, and that JH gets himself on supply stuck. He cannot make an observer at the moment because he is supply blocked, but the shuttle is going to try to get some access to those probes, and given that there's no Dragoons out here for HamburgerSasu, I think he might actually get in there and kill some probes. Also, there's only one cannon there on the top side. One cannon there, another cannon there. Shuttle flies in, Reaver is inside it. First, of course, Zealot's taking focus away from the Reaver. Reaver didn't unload yet. Reaver's flying towards the probes, gets a pretty good shot off on the probes. The Scarab is chasing, he gets about 15. He gets about 15 probes here. That's a pretty good hit. And every single tiny bit of a lead you build in a Protoss versus Protoss will propel you forward further and further, more and more past your opponent. Shuttle tries to go in, Dragoons firing on the shuttle, Templar unloads, one more Templar unloads, 2 Templars have unloaded, and he gets a pretty good storm off and actually equalizes the worker count 49 to 51. Also to be 51 soon for HamburgerSasu, so pretty good hit there, but he's still 22 behind in 30 behind in total supply already, behind on JH. JH has a pretty big lead, pretty substantial. Likewise, his gateway count, I think the gateway count is actually quite as similar to his 10, 11 gateways, and here we've got 4, 5, 4 for a total of, well, that's a total of 13, so he is in fact ahead in gateway count. And in unit size, and in army size. So the game is looking pretty good for JH, who's touching and feeling, looking for an opening and a weakness or a mistake from HamburgerSasu, but HamburgerSasu at the moment not making that mistake just yet. The one thing HamburgerSasu is going for him is that he's got Reavers with a shuttle, so he can keep microing those Reavers, which JH does not have at the moment. But JH is mostly focusing on producing more storm drops, so he can keep going for the minerals HamburgerSasu has exposed here, but he does have those Dragoons there now on the top side, but the entire bottom portion here is unprotected by Dragoons. So he cannot snipe shuttles coming in from every single direction, he can only snipe shuttles coming in here from the top side. And it all comes down to whether JH is opting for that top corner here, or whether he's going for a different angle. JH does have vision from this observer, likewise vision there from the probe, vision there from the observer as anti-drop defense, whereas HamburgerSasu is making pylons here in the bottom corner, on the bottom side of his base, to spot shuttles. But I don't think JH is going to fly all the way around. Instead, he's buying himself more time, waiting for the setup to go in with these 3 shuttles, of which only a single Templar is in there. No distraction units just yet, although now he's picking up more distraction units. He's going for the frontal attack at the same time, which of course, the purpose of which is to distract HamburgerSasu from that drop. Whether it will work or not, that's something we'll have to see. Goes in at the same time, sees the shuttle from his opponent, and he goes in with his own drop first. JH dodges it beautifully. Workers get sent to safety. Templars are low there. Templars are definitely going to die there, which now means the fight here happening in the frontal portion of HamburgerSasu's base is the main focus of the day. But in comes the shuttle drop. Shuttle drop makes the way all the way to its target. Storm drop. One more storm. 1 storm. 2 storms. He kills over half of the probes. His probe count went down from 65 to 25. That's 40 workers dead. That's absolutely disastrous for HamburgerSasu here, because that means that JH is going to win this game purely off of the fact that he has more economy, a bigger army size, and the ability to reproduce all of his units very quickly without any drawbacks, whereas HamburgerSasu is now on very low income and cannot rebuild that mass all that quick, time and time again. So all JH has to do here is keep up the pressure with this humongous ball of dragoons and a couple of zealots, and simply run HamburgerSasu over with that sheer superior amount of manpower. Dragoons there trying to do some stuff, the Reaver also trying to do some stuff, but the Reaver is not achieving that much simply because there's way too many Dragoons coming in here from JH, who's now getting a pretty great setup here inside of HamburgerSasu's base, getting a pretty good spread on his own Dragoons, even outspreading the Dragoons that HamburgerSasu has, and HamburgerSasu now has to go for one last desperate drop attempt, but the shuttle is on low HP, so we need some zealots there inside the shuttle to distract the cannons. This is his last ditch effort, but I don't think it's going to make a difference, because he tries to go in, shuttle dies before the Reaver arrives, which now means Dragoons now rolling over and taking a piece of that pie called victory. So JH really shows up once again, even made 3 more extra nexus there on the side, just in the case that he loses probes on his minerals to rebuild his probe stack and his probe count to recover his economy faster than if he didn't have those. But in the end, his economy was never truly in real danger. Got equalized in probe count once, but he outplayed HamburgerSasu in this matchup quite well. Great probe pool, and apparently also a superior strategy, a superior build order that simply worked out in favor for him better than it did for HamburgerSasu. So the score is 1-2-0. 1-0. And it's time for game number 2 between these two players and see who is going to propel themselves ahead in this best of 3. And if game number 2 is going to be the final game in the series. And for game number 2, we have 2 separate races, 2 different races. We have HamburgerSasu again on the Protoss here on the top left of the map. It's the teal Protoss, and he is right next to his opponent once again, who is located on the exact same spawning location as last time, but is this time around playing the yellow Terran, which is actually one of his best matchups. Along with Protoss versus Protoss, JH is very good in Terran versus Protoss. Now, of course, naturally, because of the way fastest map works, Protoss still has the edge, so I'm giving the odds here into the favor of HamburgerSasu purely because he's Protoss against Terran, and he's very close to the Terran, which usually spells bad news. That's something you can often already feel beforehand. Plus, HamburgerSasu is a very good Protoss versus Terran player, and his Protoss versus Protoss is, in my opinion, a little bit worse, comparatively or relatively speaking. I would give JH the Protoss versus Protoss against HamburgerSasu pretty much 6 out of 10 times, or maybe even 7 out of 10 times. Whereas I would give HamburgerSasu Terran versus Protoss, in the case where HamburgerSasu is the Terran, against JH, who's then the Protoss, I would give that scenario to HamburgerSasu 7 out of 10 times. Likewise, I would give HamburgerSasu on Protoss versus Terran with JH on the Terran. I would give that to HamburgerSasu 7 out of 10 times. So this is a matchup definitely in favor of HamburgerSasu. But whether the end results or this match is going to play out in such a way that it indeed is a matchup he's going to win, that's something we'll just have to wait and see. Because one thing we know about JH is he is a very aggressive early game player. And we're already seeing a potential scenario that might work out for him very, very well. Because HamburgerSasu went for he went for the normal build order actually, where he goes for a nexus, a pylon into a nexus, into a forge, into a pylon in the front, into a gateway at his base, and then 2 cannons there in the front. But because JH always goes for an 8 barracks, leaves a barracks and 8 supply, and then he makes a supply depot, he will have his first marine out very early, and then he starts scouting right afterwards, which gives him a very early offensive power spike right after his first barracks finishes, because he'll have an SCV and a marine out on the map very early before those cannons even finish up for HamburgerSasu. Now, if JH had gone for a supply depot on 8 and a barracks on 9, he would have his marine out at least 14 seconds later, potentially up to 15 seconds later, than if he hadn't gone for the 8-10 barracks, which would mean that he wouldn't have forced HamburgerSasu to pull 3 probes to the front, or even lower that cannon here in the front, because that lowered weakened cannon means HamburgerSasu is going to have to invest more into building more cannons here in the front to keep JH out. But HamburgerSasu is in a sense a bit lucky today, because JH didn't go for 3 barracks but for 2 barracks, which means he has he does have that very early firing power and attacking power to try and deal damage to the Protoss and catch the Protoss off guard very early on. But given that he only has 2 barrack production, his army size will stay very small and not that strong, not that relevant. Nothing HamburgerSasu cannot fight against. And then Zealot even manages to sneak through and snipe an SCV. Gonna try to snipe another SCV. The SCV there runs away with its life, stays alive barely. 2 SCVs there, almost dead. So you can see right there. Zealot once again tries to go in from the top side. It is still miraculously alive and is keeping JH busy and occupied. And it's only a single Zealot, but with some great control and great directional insight, you can do quite some work with a single Zealot. Stimmer Upgrade here on the way for JH as well. Zealot still running around. Factory order on the way. No, that's an engineering bay. So an engineering bay and a factory on the way there for JH. And HamburgerSasu is adapting his build order based on what he saw there inside of JH's base. He's going for a very early 3 gateway added on to his first gateway for a total of 4. And he's going for a Templar's Archive without going for a robotics, so a double robo. So this means he's going for Dark Templars without a doubt, and that might catch JH off guard to a certain degree. Though he does have scan, he does have an engineering bay, and he will undoubtedly have turrets up very soon as well. 2 more barracks are coming in for JH. Might spell some trouble for HamburgerSasu there. Because there's a turret coming down here in the front. JH is not planning on sitting idly by inside of his base, waiting for HamburgerSasu to throw the punches and deal out the abuse. Instead, JH is planning on being the person to push HamburgerSasu's limits in terms of how well he can defend himself. Siege tank is almost spawned, and siege mode is almost finished. Well, actually, it just started. But first we have 2 Dark Templars there coming out. Wait, frontal attack happening here at the same time as well, which means the Dark Templars have to unload and focus on the Marines here coming in through the front. But the Marines now pulling back towards the turret, which now means that those Dark Templars have to retreat as well, back into the shuttle. And HamburgerSasu is gonna eye for some opportunities inside of JH's base. But JH made a couple very smart turrets everywhere around his base, except this portion here, which is unprotected, but is soon to be protected by those turrets coming in. But first he goes for the turrets with those 4 Dark Templars, and he splits them up very wisely. Kills 1 turret, which now means that he can not detect them unless he uses the scan, but those Dark Templars right here are wreaking havoc inside of JH's base, hunting for turrets, hunting for units, hunting for things to kill outside of the vision of the detection. But once again, he goes in here through the front, kills the cannons, tries to kill the pylons, but he's distracted here in his base because Dark Templars in his base are wreaking havoc. So now he's going to lose those Marines there in the front because he wasn't paying attention to both locations at the same time, which is very hard to do, so I can't blame him for it. But nonetheless, very well played here by HamburgerSasu, being capable of juggling his attention and his multitasking better than JH could. So that's a total of 2 Dark Templars. A lot of Dark Templars in his base have gone down, so 3 Dark Templars now hunting for things to kill, and they're entering JH's base, who's trying to push his detection line further and further to protect all of his buildings, while balling up his Marines to defend himself. Whereas HamburgerSasu is making 2 Reavers and even more Dark Templars. So the 2 Reavers there are going to be shuttled over into JH's base, while the Dark Templars are keeping him busy and occupied, which is costing JH a lot of APM and a lot of actions directed at something he doesn't want to direct it at. Also, he is still supply stuck because he kept losing those SCVs on the depots, and he kept losing depots as well. Which now means this attack from HamburgerSasu might just be a very fatal one. If, of course, it is played well enough. Because he's going to try to protect his Reaver with Dark Templars. So the Reavers are going to try to kill turrets. Dark Templars are going to kill Marines that are hunting for the Reavers. But JH has very smartly sieged up some of his tanks that are covering quite some ground here. So he might actually be able to defend himself against this if those Marines he has there stay alive unhurt. But what's this? HamburgerSasu avoids the factories altogether, knowing that there's most likely tanks there around the factories, and goes for the corner or the side where there's only depots and Marines and no tanks, which now means JH has to unsiege his tanks, move those tanks there to the side, where while those Dark Templars, Reavers, and Zealots are wreaking absolute havoc here on the weak side of JH's base. The Reavers are killing Marines so quick, and the Dark Templars are tearing through everything they can see. And pretty much all the Marines he had have gone down. He had about 30 Marines, and there's only 6 of them left. They're hunting for those Reavers, but the Reavers are taking down those Marines quite handily. Though 1 Marine left, and 1 Marine means that the Reaver stays alive and kills the 1 Marine with 16 HP left, which now means he's going to kill the scan comms at station unless those Marines there come into the scene just quick enough to prevent it from happening. But he's lost a couple of SCVs, lost a lot of Marines, and the supply is still on 78, whereas HamburgerSasu is now on 133, sends in more Zealots, comes in with the Reaver shuttle, double Reaver there, Zealots on top of the tank, tanks going down, more Zealots and Dragoons there in the mix as well, more news being produced inside of his base. He's microing his Reaver quite well, trying to find a way towards those probes, trying to find a way towards the backline of JH's base with those Zealots and the Reavers. The control is so well executed. Look at this. He's gonna kill. He's trying to kill the SCVs, but he kills the Marines, all of them instead. Tank there also gonna go down to the Reavers. He has to land the Reaver next to the tank, and beautiful work. Scarab there, hunting for SCVs. He doesn't get any of the SCVs there, but nonetheless, he is dealing a lot of damage to JH here, keeping JH very small, while continuously growing his own base in terms of size. You got Corsairs there to distract turrets from the shuttle. Inside the shuttle, you find a single Templar, and it's mostly Dragoons there to assist it to get in. But it's not quite enough because there's a lot of tanks here, and this time the tanks are actually covering every single little portion of JH's base, so he is well protected, except here for the top side. Except here for the top corner, which I think is going to be the location and the weak spot that HamburgerSasu is going to abuse to fly his drop in. Same time, of course, he's building and adding onto his base and loading up another drop and balling up his mass. And the shuttle here comes in, shuttle goes in, will it reach destination? Templar there unloads, Templar unloads outside the range of the tank, and he gets a great storm off, and he kills almost all of the SCVs that he had on the minerals there. He killed 35 SCVs that were mining minerals, minding their own business, and that means that JH calls GG, because without minerals, without money, you cannot defend against all these very well coordinated and executed attacks by HamburgerSasu. So it means the score is equalized up to 1 win for either player. Let's call it like that. 1 win for HamburgerSasu, 1 win for JH. Really, really amazingly well executed game there from HamburgerSasu. I really, really love when he goes for these very control and multitask intense strategies. It's just so beautiful to behold. Like the things that are possible with Protoss on fastest map, go far beyond just dropping and massing. The amount of things you can do like this are beautiful and well thought out, and apparently really effective, because not a lot of players can handle JH's Terran in such a manner as this one. But we've got a game number 3, because this is a best of 3 series, so let's head over to game number 3 and see who takes home the series. It may be quite rare to see, but HamburgerSasu and JH have actually decided to play Terran versus Zerg. So we're actually not getting any matchup repeats or a very stale series. We're actually getting a lot of different matchups in a very short series, which is honestly a lot of fun, because we get to see a lot of variety in playstyles and all that kind of stuff. First, I'm going to speed up the first 2 minutes, because the first 2 minutes are not that interesting, specifically and particularly in a cross-map situation. HamburgerSasu is the Terran. This Terran is extremely strong and pretty much impossible to beat for most players, whereas JH is here on the other side of the map, the bottom left corner, playing the blue Zerg, and he's preparing himself for a choke and a very early gas before his first hatchery even finishes. So that's a 10 gas, a 9 hatchery, 9 pool, and 9 hatchery into a 10 gas. They're all very early, but he wants to get his gas tech up and running very early. He wants to have that very quick lair. Whereas HamburgerSasu goes for 2 barracks, and he recognizes it's a cross-map situation, which means he cannot do that much in the early phase. Got an academy up and running, well, up and building. So he got his gas also already finished up, and he arrives at JH's choke with his SCV and a Marine, and another Marine, and 2 more Marines here on the way. But the Sunken finishes up just in time and propels the attempt at early aggression and harass without actually achieving much except a dead Marine. A factory being built here on the middle. So he is in fact planning on going for a very aggressive build order with a tank push, but I think JH is trying to prevent this from happening, because he's going in with those Zerglings, where there's now 5 Marines, and those 5 Marines are superior to those 4 Zerglings, which now means he's forced to pull back. 5 Zerglings are in the front. He lost 1 of them. Lair is about halfway done. And he's got a 3rd macro hatchery here on the way as well. Still only a single Sunken there in the front. He's really risking that one, because he does not know that HamburgerSasu only has 2 barracks instead of 3. That's pretty darn risky. He's got an academy up and running. He's got 2 gas. Stim upgrade is on the way. Still only a single factory being built here on the middle, which leads me to believe he's going for a starport next. Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe he might not go for a starport next. Maybe he's going to go for something else first. Nonetheless, machine shop being added on, and he goes for an engineering bay to hover on top of this choke. Sunken number 2 there on the way, and we have a Hydra's Den finishing up here for JH. He's got a 2nd extractor there, morphed up and ready. More drones being sent there to the gas and to his minerals, and he's waiting for his lurker aspect upgrade to finish, while adding on drones and probably a couple of lurkers there as well. Siege mode on the way, siege tank also on the way. 2 more barracks have been added on for HamburgerSasu. He's planning on going for a very marine heavy strategy against JH Zerg. And the game is starting to look rather interesting, because this means we're going to be seeing some action after the lurkers finish up. Until that point though, the only action we'll be seeing is a tank trying to push its way through this choke point here, while HamburgerSasu actually might have a chance here to break through by just stimming his Marines and his firebats into the mix once the tank sieges up and starts firing on the frontal Sunken, because there's only 2 Sunkens here, and HamburgerSasu now knows, and I think JH now also knows, that he is in for some potential danger. So he made a lot of extra Zerglings and pulled 2 drones there to the front to help him defend. And he goes with Zerglings, but there's Marines and firebats there, which means the Zerglings have to pull back immediately without doing anything but lose a couple of their members. And now is actually the great time for HamburgerSasu to go in and just risk it all for the biscuit, but he decides against it, because the Sunkens in the back are now going to finish up. and he wants to play it safe and secure. But playing it safe and secure here means that he's giving JH more time, and he might have just given JH a little bit too much time, because those Sunken in the back are finishing up just before he can go in for the kill. And that's where you can see that sometimes giving your opponent a little bit more time because you want to feel safe might actually backfire, because he lost most of his marine mass there, and he's going to lose more of his marine mass. Now means that the lurkers that are coming in are gonna deal some real damage here to HamburgerSasu. There's 3 lurkers there, one of them goes down, one of them advances forward, but it cannot go too far, because as you can see, it goes down to the tank shots without achieving much at all. So in the end, the lurkers did nothing except scaring HamburgerSasu away. We lost 2 lurkers out of the 4. He has 2 Sunkers in the front. He does not have a science facility yet, but the science facility is on the way. He does not have a second command center, so no scan upgrade there for HamburgerSasu. He's sieging up just perfectly outside of the range of the lurker. More lurkers and Zerkins are on the way. Zerkin speed, of course, also has finished, but we had already seen that. He's got a hive on the way there because he finished his Queen's Nest. He's mining from 3 extractors, and now he's adding on a Spire as well, and a couple of Zerkins again on top of the tanks, but none of the tanks there go down. And the lurker is still there. It cannot unburrow because the moment it... Great play there from HamburgerSasu, using his own marine as a target to kill the lurker beneath the marine to stop that annoying lurker from being in his way. But JH is actually pretty darn smart. He used Overlords there on the side to lift over some lurkers and Zerglings, and now he's going for the kill on his opponent, HamburgerSasu, with all of his units out of his base. HamburgerSasu does not know this is coming, and JH might just be the smartest man on the planet while in this game with this very well executed strategy. Lurkers now coming in, Marines seeing it, HamburgerSasu knows, and he feels like, oh god, I am so screwed. I am so damn screwed. There's a vessel on the way. Vessel is almost finished, but he's going to lose a lot of SCVs before the vessel arrives back home. He's going to have to send units back home as well. There's a tank on the way, vessel on the way there as well. Marines still spawning, Marines trying to get on top of anything, but these things are going to die. SCVs also trying to wriggle their way out of this very nasty, spiky situation. He does manage to get... No, actually, most of his SCVs there go down because there's simply too many lurkers there. Vessel arrives on the scene. He discontinued his push here. He could have gone for... He could have continued to push, but he would need detection for it. So he's actually incapable of pushing into JH's base. He now has 9 SCVs left. He's got detection. Tanks and Marines there trying to take lurkers down, but the lurkers actually doing a great job of killing all the Marines there. Wait, 1 Marine stays alive, 9 SCVs still alive, and this game is looking very bad here for HamburgerSasu. That 2 of the 9 SCVs are here on the middle. So actually only 7 SCVs mining, and he's only got a single command center, and I'm actually going to call it right here, right now. JH is going to win this, without a doubt, because he has that Defiler mount up and running. He's got Scorches there as well to hunt for vessels, and he knows that HamburgerSasu cannot make a second vessel because he lacks the minerals for it. He lacks the income to make a second vessel. Well, he has a second vessel. No, he pulled the vessel from his base to the front, but the vessel is now being in danger of going down. The fighter also on the way there for JH. He's got Burrow Upgrade also being researched, and he's got Consume also being researched. But HamburgerSasu knows that he's got to go now and then. He loses the vessel, but the second vessel comes in, which means that now those lurkers there are going to have to unburrow and move away. Vessel there, does he have Radiate? He doesn't have Radiate. He has Radiate. He goes for the drones. Drone immediately goes down. That's amazing. So that means that JH target fired on his own drone to kill the drone before to kill the other drones. I've never seen it done like that before, but that's very, very smart. So HamburgerSasu is now living on a timer on a clock because the Consume has finished. It has the energy for Dark Swarm. Lurkers get under the Dark Swarm. He burrows under the Dark Swarm, and the Marines go down. Tanks have to unsiege and roll away and find another way in. Time is ticking for HamburgerSasu. JH on 24 drones, but he has the infrastructure and the units and the tech to roll HamburgerSasu over if he plays this well. HamburgerSasu just has to keep this vessel alive. Goes in for another Radiate. Will he get it? Does he even have energy for a Radiate? He has energy for a Radiate. He gets Radiate on a nice couple amount of drones, but the drones burrow up just in time, which means only a single drone there goes down. Another Dark Swarm here, killing those Zerglings, killing the tanks and the Marines. 1 Dark Swarm there ends though. The Dark Swarm is going to get reused very quickly, very soon. He tries to go in on the tanks, gets in on the tanks. The tanks have to be running away. Vessel also in danger of dying there because two Scorchers managed to find it, and the tanks now retreating back to the safety of this little fortification here that HamburgerSasu built himself, but I don't think it's going to be enough because there's nothing inside the bunker. It means they're stimming in to protect the tanks. The tanks get protected quite well, but there's only 2 tanks and 4 Marines there to keep HamburgerSasu alive, while his SCV count has recovered to 18. He's adding on another command center, and he's, instead of making more Marines and Firebats, he's lifting up his barracks after a single wave of Firebats. So he's actually going to try and rely on only these 3 factors in the front, a single starport, and I don't think that's going to be enough. Scorch is splitting up to the sides to get a surround on, I think, the vessel, or maybe just scouting the map and seeing what he has to do. He's got a nice lurker, Dark Swarm, the Defiler drop here on the way into HamburgerSasu's base. I think the Scorches serve as recon. You find some, well, he just goes for the barracks there. Still, he's got a self-protector here in the front. Not as if HamburgerSasu can do anything with this, because this is simply too little to do anything with. And the fact that HamburgerSasu lifted up his barracks might just spell the end here. 2 Overlords there, 3 Lurkers, 1 Defiler. He sees it, but he might just assume that there's nothing in there, although now he sees that, wait, those Overlords are moving towards my base, towards my minerals. And now he has to be cursing himself because this is the end of the game. We're going to see it right here, unloads the Lurkers, unloads the Defiler outside of the vision, and starts rolling in like, vroom, get out of the way, bitch, move! In goes the Lurkers, burrowing up, and HamburgerSasu calls the GG. Doesn't even have to use the Dark Swarm because there's no detection. No units. HamburgerSasu dies after a very well played Zerg versus Terran by JH, who gets himself the 2-1 victory over his arch nemesis. Because these 2 players, I think, have played probably the most matches against each other out of anyone. There's so many replays between HamburgerSasu and JH, it's hard to describe just how many there are. These 2 play a lot against each other. So well played by JH. I am honestly impressed. He played this one down to the T. Not a lot of mistakes. Pretty much no mistakes. This one, pretty much no mistakes. HamburgerSasu also made no mistakes, but got outplayed. And getting outplayed is not necessarily a mistake. Well, you could say it's a mistake that he didn't have enough vision there to cover his options, but nonetheless. JH comes home with the win, with the W, and he deserves it. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you again next time for the next video. Hope you enjoyed this one, and don't forget to like yourself and live a good life.